I'm Dr. John, and this is your Maintenance Minute. We're continuing our conversation on the 32 storeroom processes. Today, we're going to talk about issuing. I kind of was wondering when I got to this one exactly what I was going to talk about, because there's a whole lot of things to talk about when you're discussing issuing a part of the storeroom. And I guess I kind of broke it down to these sort of 5 things right here. Let me get my whiteboard correct. The first thing to know is, what does issuing actually mean? Here's what we're doing. We're transferring the ownership of the part. I'll just use my stapler here for an example. So I'm in the storeroom. This is in the store. I'm in the inventory, belongs, to the inventory. When I'm issuing it to you, what I'm actually doing is transferring the ownership from the storeroom to you, or more specifically to that work, or to that work order, which brings up the other subjects. We're transferring ownership. So there's got to be some sort of control of that, right? The other point that I want to make is that it has to be done on a work order 100% of the time. I'm just talking spare parts here, not earplugs and hairnets and those kinds of things. I'm just talking MRO spare parts. No parts come out of that storeroom unless there's a work order authorizing the withdrawal of that part or the transfer of ownership from the storeroom to essentially that job ticket. One of the best ways that we can get around any of the ills that are going to befall us in the issuing process, and believe me, there are many. As soon as you start, issuing items and, what's the usage? I got a case. Do I give you one? As soon as we start messing around with the inventory, there's all kinds of opportunities to screw things up. The best way to avoid any of that, quite honestly, is for the majority of your issues to be to kits. We build kits and we issue the kits at. Believe me, if you can. And we've talked about kitting too, by the way. Extremely hard. It's an easy process to understand, but it's extremely hard for anybody to pull off, certainly consistently. But if we can do the majority of our work through kitting, we can really avoid a lot of the pitfalls that we're going to fall in this issuing process, right? What we need to do too, as soon as we issue a part, we need to document that goods movement, right? It's out of inventory. It is assigned to that work order. It's gone to that work order. I need to do that as soon as the issue is made. I don't want to collect up issues for the day and then at the end sit down and type all those up. Believe me, you're going to get into a lot of trouble that way. So I'm documenting that goods movement and I'm transferring the ownership of the part. No work order, no part. The best way to get out of any of the ills that are going to befall you is through the kitting process. What's interesting too is this, most people think that the number one reason our cycle counts are off is because maintenance people come in, take parts and don't write them down. I'm not suggesting that doesn't happen. It probably happens quite a bit where you work. But one of the number one reasons that our cycle counting gets off, that is to say that's what is on our shelf is not, the count of what's on our shelf is not what's actually in the computer. One of the number one reasons that actually happens is we mess up in this kitting process, right? You came and you asked for one and I gave you a case when actually there are 12 eaches inside that case, or the weight of something or the length of something or the count of something, or I gave you a kit and I registered it as an entire part. So there's a real opportunity to mess things up in the issuing process. This is why we absolutely have to have a procedure or a process in the store for here's how we're going to issue things. You're going to come to the storeroom window. You're going to present a work order, which is the authorization. Ideally, for companies that are really, really mature, the part that you're asking for is printed on that work order. It's not just a work order blank with no parts on it, right? The real authorization is that it's printed on that work order. That's where we ascribe to be to. You may or may not be there yet, but that's where you hope to be, or that's where you should hope to be. But this process of issuing is really the transfer. I have it, now you have it, and here's the paperwork to prove that. We need to get this one right. This is one of the big ones, right? This is the major opportunity where we have to mess up our inventory count, and that'll be shown in our cycle counting. So let's get this right. Let's get a process. Let's get this nailed down. Let's get people trained to the process and audit our ability to stick to it. Let's get this one right. I'm Dr. John. This is your Maintenance Minute.